Dr. Rochelle Wong, we have Rebecca Wellis, we have Dr. Tan Tron, and then we have also Annie Hendricks, and they are going to be talking a little bit about the whole transition over to Mission Valley. If you have questions, great, and they are here to just provide you with some information. So thank you so much for attending today.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Rochelle Wong, and I just want to welcome all of you. First of all, this is exciting for me because I, once upon a time, a long time ago, were in your seat as an undergrad here at Point Loma getting my, back then it was liberal studies degree and multiple subject teaching credential. So I love being able to speak with our undergrads. I feel a kindred spirit. So I'm super excited for you guys because this is really exciting where you're kind of nearing the end and you're looking towards finishing up, getting that actual field work and clinical practice. And I know some of you have had field work, although lately most of it's been through video. But we're excited to have you, those of you who are getting your, finishing up with your credential, to have you finish up with us. So I am the program director for our Master of Arts in Teaching and the teacher preparation at Point Loma for our Mission Valley campus. So when you come over, you will likely have an intake interview with me, and then we'll talk through kind of your last steps, whatever those last classes might be. And I would like to introduce, I think we'll start with field work, because you'll get there first. If you're not doing all your field work here, and you happen to take a class that is with field work,
4010.
There you go. You will get to know Annie Hendricks. So Annie, do you want to say any words?
Just when you come over to the campus, you make sure you send all your prerequisites because you've submitted them here, doesn't mean they'll transfer, so make sure that gets done. And field work can be complicated if there's a lot of requirements. So please reach out to me. Don't wait till you're frustrated. Just shoot me an email or call me and I'll help you immediately, and that way it will make everything go smoother.
Yeah, and the more that you can reach out to Annie, I know Annie and Marilee often work together hand in hand, especially if you're taking a fieldwork class here and you're taking a fieldwork class at Mission Valley at the same time. They really work together as much as they can to try to place you in a similar kind of setting so that you're in the same place. Doesn't always happen, but I know they work very hard to try to make that happen. So as much as you can be communicative with Annie and Marilee, the better off you are.
And we're planning to do fieldwork placements in person in the spring. So if you could go on the website and fill out the spring fieldwork application if you're planning to do fieldwork in the spring, that would really help me. As soon as I get that, I start looking for your placements. So get that done as soon as you can.
So that would primarily be for 4010.
And that would be for 4010. Yeah. Unless you're on a kind of a different timeline, you have some sort of schedule conflict, it really would be the only class for the vast majority of you that we take over there with you.
And you met, I'm saving Tan for last because she's at the last phase. You met or at least got introduced to Rebecca Rellis, who is our outreach coordinator. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. So besides Marilee Bolt's emails that you're going to be receiving a lot from, you can also look out for emails from me. I do a lot of the weekly bulletins, the monthly newsletters, and a lot of the social media as well. So if you have any ideas or do you want to highlight somebody in your class or your professor, feel free to reach out to me. And also look out for my emails. There's going to be a lot of job and volunteer opportunities as well in those emails.
And I just want to capitalize on that. We get just about every day an email from a school district, from a principal, from an organization about job opportunities. So really that's something to take into consideration, especially if you're looking for a job now or even like summer. If you're here in the San Diego area, keep a lookout for that. Great opportunities for especially education field.
And they're not just in the Mission Valley, they're also in the Point Loma area. So often when I receive something from a principal or an organization, even in the Point Loma direct area, I forward all of that directly to Rebecca. Poor Rebecca gets things, I think, from everybody that way. But then she puts it in those Friday emails. So it's not just for the Mission Valley area, it really is inclusive of our area as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people in education, well, any field really, want to hire Point Loma Nazarene University students. So they do hit us up for that, and so you'll find that in that newsletter. Okay, So last but not least, we have Dr. Tan Tran, and she is our clinical practice coordinator. So every single one of you, if you're getting your credential, you're doing that through our Mission Valley campus because we're the graduate campus and that's a part of graduate work. So you will be in contact with Tan. And so, Tan, you have some words?
And if I can just butt in, that's even if you're doing clinical practice as an undergrad. So I know some of you are on the 4-year track and you're either graduating early and doing clinical practice, or you may even be doing clinical practice as an undergrad. You would still be working through the Mission Valley campus, even though you are an undergrad. So I just wanted to put that.
All
Sorry.
clinical practice, which is your student teaching, right, at the very end.
Good morning, everyone. Pop quiz, does anybody know when the application is due for clinical practice in spring?
I believe the 22nd.
Yes, correct.
Oh.
So if you are on track to start student teaching in the spring, please make sure you submit an application into me by the 22nd and your prereqs by the 25th, the following Monday. I place students all over San Diego County. We try to accommodate your requests, but it doesn't always work out because we work through HR offices and not directly with teachers or school principals. Some districts we do, but the majority we work through HR, so we just have to go with whatever placements they assign. So be flexible, and I guess that's all I have for now. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Well, I was just going to kind of fill in a bunch with clinical practice. So one thing to keep in mind, as Tan said, we do place in all of San Diego County. So should you, I mean, I know a lot of you right now are here in Point Loma, but when you're doing your student teaching, if you happen to be living with an aunt or you have an apartment in North County, South Bay, that kind of thing, you want to put that in your application because obviously San Diego's huge and Tan really does try to put you in a geographic area where you're not having to drive for forever. And then also, something to keep in mind is, as she mentioned, it does go through HR in the district. So they make the placements, we can make requests, but they make those placements. But just keep in mind, if you are thinking about a wonderful school that you went where all the children are perfect and you made great connections with the teachers there and it's just a really comfortable setting, that may not be ideal for clinical practice because our job is to equip you for the average California classroom, which, as you know very well, that means there are English language learners, there are students on IEPs who have special needs, social emotional needs, and that also is required for your Cal TPA, which you'll get familiar with. That's the assessment that the state of California will require you to do before you get your credential. You'll be doing your first Cal TPA in your first clinical practice placement, which will last for about 8 to 9 weeks. And then you'll do your second clinical practice in a second placement for that 8 or 9 weeks, and that's where you do your second TPA. So a requirement of the TPA is that you have focus students who meet that criteria. An English language learner, someone with special needs, and then someone with social emotional needs, essentially. So all that to say, a lot of students want a certain school, but the demographics need to fit that criteria because we need you to fulfill your requirements for the state of California so you can get that credential, okay? I would love to talk about the hot topic of vaccinations and COVID testing. So this is kind of the new thing right now. As you know, Point Loma Nazarene University does not require vaccination. Many universities do. I don't know how much you guys watch the news. We're constantly watching and getting word from our school districts. And the second largest school district in the state of California is San Diego Unified. Those of you doing your field work here in the Point Loma area, that's in San Diego Unified. And that district recently announced that starting essentially in January, anybody placed in a school, so all of their staff, faculty, and anybody doing field work or clinical practice has to be vaccinated. So that's, again, these are not our rules as far as the university, but what you need to know is if you have and it's you're right, I'm not gonna get into the vaccine, not vaccine. But if you have chosen not to be vaccinated, you just need to know we will not be able to place you in a school district that requires vaccination. And of course, this is continuously evolving, right? So once we know San Diego Unified has announced that, we know Chula Vista is saying that about student teachers, and they're probably gonna make formal announcements about others. Sweetwater is gonna be headed there too. So if you're someone who's choosing not to get vaccinated, just keep in mind, first and foremost, your TON is gonna do her best to place you. You need to, while we can't ask you by kind of HIPAA laws, we can't ask you if you're vaccinated, please help us help you by offering that information if you can, because that will help TON know where to place you. She can't place you in those bigger school districts, as I just said. So she will look for it right now. Very likely our smaller districts, we can't guarantee you this, but very likely our smaller districts will, I know there's a few that will very likely remain where you don't have to be vaccinated, but nothing is guaranteed. So TON will do her best to help accommodate you. But again, if you could just offer that information to us and be forthright about that, that will help her find you a place where you can do your student teaching without vaccination. Okay, anything you want to add to
And
that?
I was just gonna add to that, the more quickly you're willing to share that information with TON, the more quickly she can make sure she can do her very best to try to accommodate that. So just something to keep in mind. Kendall, you had a
Where
question?
would they offer that? Like in the application or
Yeah.
email?
Would that be a
And
good?
if you haven't submitted your application yet, go ahead and put that in the application. If you already have, then just shoot me an email.
So thank you for adjustment. I really appreciate it. So like I said, unfortunately we're not able to give you a guarantee because everything is evolving so quickly, but we will do our absolute best to try to accommodate you.
But keep in mind, like right now, the districts I know of that are more likely to remain where they don't require vaccination, that's a little more east than here, right? So you will have to drive, just keep that in mind. So it won't be anything nearby here because that's under San Diego Unified, if that is your prerogative to go without vaccination.
And at this moment, I believe Poway Unified is not requiring
Okay.
vaccine.
Okay, good to know. Okay,
What
Did
other
you have
questions do you have for, please go ahead.
I have a couple, I'm sorry.
don't
there's,
apologize. Hi, good to see you, by the way. She was in my online class.
Yeah,
and
I see your little
I know, we
story.
were online and we're having mass now, sorry, good to see you.
Good to see you too. November 8th, there's an application for like the graduate program. And we just got an email about it. I'm just confused what the difference is between that and then the other like clinical practice one that we just filled out. So I just don't know what the difference is.
So, do you wanna jump in there?
So, yeah. I
When
can.
when do they have to apply
So
for the grad
that's-
campus?
So that's if you're so
Great
clinical
question.
practice is literally student teaching, and that's all it is. If you are graduating with your degree from Point Loma, and you are continuing your credential and so forth, and you haven't finished it yet, you need to apply to the grad campus, because you are literally taking additional classes after you graduated. Now, that does not mean you have to seek a master's degree or a graduate degree, but because you are taking additional classes after you graduate, you do need to apply to the graduate campus. And again, that is separate than student teaching. Student teaching clinical practice is literally by itself. So if you are graduating, whether you're graduating the fall, spring, or even next year, and you are taking additional classes or clinical practice, after you graduate, you will need to apply to the grad campus, usually the semester before you graduate. So if you are graduating in December and you are doing student teaching in the spring or what have you, you would apply for the grad campus by November.
Okay, so if like I'm doing my clinical practice next semester, I would apply for that by November 8th?
Are you graduating in December, Tiffany?
No.
Okay, are you doing your clinical practice as an undergrad then?
Yeah.
Then you don't need to do that. You're
Okay.
only doing that if you are doing clinical practice or taking class, well, or both. Taking classes or doing clinical practice after you graduate from PLNU.
Okay.
If you are finishing everything while you are still an undergrad, you do not need to apply to the grad campus because that's part of the program.
Great clarification.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Any other clarification, because I know that's a
It's
challenging thing,
confusing.
like clinical practice, graduate program, and so forth. If you're doing everything as an undergrad, then all you need to is a clinical practice application, not the grad program. Yeah.
So how does clinical practice, since it's like, what distinguishes it if you're doing it in undergrad versus graduate? Like, do you have to be taking like one class at this campus to be considered an undergraduate, or like?
An undergrad, it's really once you have fulfilled all of your degree requirements as a cross-disciplinary studies major, you've done all of your GE requirements, and you have reached 128 units, they will graduate you. Like, you don't really have a choice, they will graduate you. So, if you still have one class that is part of your major that you haven't taken, you will not be graduated yet. So it really is how many units you have. 128 is the magic number for the university. That's not cross-disciplinary, that's the university, 128 units. And if you have taken all of those classes on your advising guide, GE, major requirements, so forth, they will graduate you. So that's really the magic. It's not determined by whether or not you're doing your student teaching, it's really determined by the university.
And then just keep in mind that student teaching, that clinical practice only happens after you've had all those credential courses. So those courses that she mentioned, I'm trying to remember the undergrad numbers, the 4022, the 4010, and the
4009.
4009, yes. Those all need to be taken before you can do the clinical practice.
And the other thing to keep in mind is clinical practice is 10 units. So it is usually, if you've graduated, that's the only thing you take at that time. Because you're literally teaching every day from 7 to 4, or whatever the hours are. So it is as if you are teaching all day. So it's not something you take in addition to other coursework. If you are an undergrad, however, we have you take the capstone class at the same time, because it's 2 units, so you have 10. Plus 2, that brings you to 12 units, which is a full-time undergrad. And we make sure that capstone class is at night. So you can do your student teaching and take your capstone at night. So if you're a grad, you just do student teaching. If you are an undergrad, you do your student teaching and 2-unit capstone, and that's how we're able to make sure you are a full-time student while you're doing your student teaching. I see several, yeah, go ahead.
What is capstone? Like, what does it entail?
So that's a great question. So the capstone class is actually similar to classes offered, or I should say seminars offered at the Mission Valley campus that are really, if you want to think about it, hot topics in education, important topics that are in the field of education. Writing good lesson plans, trauma-informed care, cultural competency.
Technology.
Oh, and technology, I forgot that one, thank you, and technology. So they're really important things that you've gotten a taste of in your coursework, but this is where you're gonna be hitting it a little bit harder, and you're with students who are towards the end of their journey as an undergrad. So it's a senior, capstone's focusing on education topics.
Thank you.
Great question. You had your hand up first, and then
I know you mentioned the fieldwork application and then the prerequisites. I know that I did my fieldwork application. Are the prerequisites like the same as fieldwork, like, or
Yes.
are those something different?
It's the same.
Okay, okay.
thank you. Tiffany, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm taking the 4010 this semester, like quad 2. Is that going to also be an online fieldwork portion, or will we be in person?
Quad 2 is online.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
just made that announcement, just very
We were
recently.
watching the schools and with COVID cases, so yeah, any field work this semester or this semester will be video.
Yeah, so
Our
good
hope
question.
is in January we can get you in the classroom.
I just have another quick one. If we've been vaccinated, do we have to give you guys like a copy of our vaccine card with like the fieldwork application, or do you just need it?
We're still processing how to handle this. I know any of your documentation as far as your vaccine card goes to the on-file, that quick base with the
Yeah,
wellness.
wellness already has theirs, they have to, or they're on the testing, so more than likely you've already provided that to wellness.
Yeah.
There may be another place you need to provide it, but we don't know that yet.
Okay.
Literally, I think, are they gonna get the same email that Deb's gonna, RDA is sending out?
I believe so, although that's more focused for grad students than because our undergrads, you're already in our system as part of your undergraduate program.
Right, so we are having to quickly respond to what the governor sets as the order for either vaccination or testing, and then now what school districts are doing. So this is a new thing we're working on, information, but right now, having that on at QuickBase, and then what likely will happen, and again, this could change, districts could be giving us further information. Will they be asking you for documentation, or they may ask you when you get to the school to provide your own?
Yeah,
You can
HR,
both
I know
speak to
Chula
that.
Vista will ask you to go to their office, HR office, and submit that. Some schools are requesting that you're giving it to providing a copy for the principal, so it just depends on where you're placed.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Did you wanna add to that?
That's the same thing.
Okay.
So thank you for that question. Like I said, we're learning, and as we learn, we're providing you the information. So, and honestly, we don't always know the answer yet, but we will definitely pass it on to you as soon as we know.
So main thing is, because again, that's something that's private, right? That's your kind of considered your health record. We're not gonna come out and ask you if you're vaccinated. So TON is going to place with the understanding that you're good to go anywhere unless you dictate otherwise. Okay, and then if you are asked by the school that you're placed at or the school district to provide that proof of vaccination, then that's something you just respond to on every school right now and every district is different. I supervise one student on one school and I had to scan them and email them my vaccine card, and the other school didn't even ask, so, yeah.
Yeah,
So
go
I
ahead.
had one last question about the fieldwork application. If you're taking 4010 as a second quad, so you haven't taken Eureka yet, and you mark that on your fieldwork application that you haven't passed it, would that be a problem for getting placed?
Are you referring to clinical practice?
Yes,
Or the
yes,
CDT?
sorry.
There's no question.
Oh, yeah, so, no, it doesn't, you're
Okay.
not required to pass the RICA
Okay,
before clinical practice unless you were an intern.
okay.
So you can take your time and finish it by the time you complete clinical practice.
Right, so you can't get your credential without passing the RICA, but you can do student teaching without.
Okay.
But you said you already took 4010?
No, I'm in it next quad.
I was gonna say, your chances of passing the RICA are much higher if you take it right after the class.
So you may
So
actually
if-
want to register for the RICA now, right
Well,
after you finish
and
it.
it's a requirement of the class to register, quite honestly. So if you just don't put it off, if you just have in your mind, you're gonna take it this quad, over Christmas break, plan to take that RICA while it's all fresh in your mind. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, it is 10:32 or 10:31, so if you have any additional questions, you can stay. Don't forget to go back